I felt that the book I just wrote was really geared to your generation, younger people. The book is actually a kind of, if you want to use the highfalutin word, an intellectual autobiography. It's what I learned from my life's involvement in politics, and in lieu of writing an autobiography, I thought I would write this instead, and it would be passed on to you, young people, so they can, to whatever extent it may be, they could benefit from the mistakes I made, and also occasionally the right things that I did.
Cool. That's good. All right, so to begin, when is the book going to be released?
Hopefully around November.
November.
I'm right now trying to put the finishing touches on the actual manuscript, but then there are still many stages in the publishing, to get to the publication of the book. The book has to be typeset, and errors always enter or creep in when you make the transition from like a Word document to typesetting.
Gotcha.
Then after the typesetting is the only time you can write the index, because the index refers to page numbers. So until we know what the pages are going to look like, we can't do the index. So there's still the stage of the index, and then there are successive stages of correcting all the errors that crept in from the transition. Now, and then there's another problem. When you start correcting the errors that entered in the typesetting, that changes the page numbers of the index.
Wow. So it's a hoopla.
So it's a very long process. Writing a book is just from the technical side. The technical side is excruciating.
How involved are you with the logistics?
Well, it depends on the size of a publisher.
Yeah.
If you have a large publisher, they have a separate department for everything.
Yeah.
It's highly specialized. There's a real
like
refined division of labor.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with a small publisher who basically is running the operation from his or her back pocket, you're very involved.
Really?
You're very involved.
What is the benefit from transitioning from Word document to, what did you say?
It's typesetting.
Typesetting? What is typesetting?
It's just a different format for the actual publication of the book. So you have to reformat a Word document as a publishable book document.
The publishable form, that's pretty much specific to book format, literally the tangible book format, or is it something
You know
else?
what? I don't know.
Okay.
I just know there is submitting the manuscript and then the typesetting stage or phase, and that's always a nightmare for me.
For the typesetting,
is it gets botched up.
Is it a software or is it an actual
I don't know.
device?
I don't know what it is. I'm
think
sure
there
the technology has changed a lot.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You would think there would be technology to pretty much alleviate this whole craziness.
No.
Okay.
No, there are always errors creeping in. Sometimes myself and my old editor, we would go mad.
Yeah.
I mean, last time I actually said to my publisher, forget it, I will hire a typesetter to do the work. And I paid somebody to do it because
cool.
my editor, Maren Hackman, and I, we decided that the typesetter I had must have been on drugs. Must have been on drugs, because each time we asked her to enter one correction, it came back with the correction entered and 5 new errors.
Wow, yeah.
And 5 new errors. So we went absolutely mad, hired somebody, and that was that.
Was it expensive to hire somebody?
I would say, well, it depends on what you consider expensive.
Oh,
I
okay.
consider eating out expensive. No, other people do not.
This must have been a foot and an arm. Okay. All right. Well, one thing I noticed about your writing style and stuff, you're actually much more wittier and funnier than I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Your little jibes and the ironies you pinpoint, and then sort of make into witty statements, and yeah, it was good. A quote came to me while thinking about this. If you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh, otherwise they'll kill you. You know who said that?
No.
Oscar Wilde. You haven't heard
Wilde.
this? Yeah,
That's
Wilde.
Wilde.
Yeah, so that was cool.
Well, he was first rank wit.
Yeah.
He was very funny.
Cool. At other times in the book,
I should say that there are different registers or tones when I'm writing. If I think something is just contemptibly stupid, I'm going to say it, and I will ridicule it because people are making big bucks and they're disorienting other people with their idiocies, and I'll say it. Other times, I will be I'll be very serious. No humor enters it. This is a life and death issue. So I am deadly earnest and deadly serious. And then sometimes I will heap contempt on those who lie, fabricate, misinform. I will be, if I can use the word, scathing in my characterization of them. But I do think in the history of political writing, there's always been a place for mockery and ridicule of fraudsters and charlatans. And a lot of the subject matter of the book I wrote is exposing fraud and charlatanry. And there I am, yes, pretty merciless and funny. I laugh at it, and everybody else laughs at it. And I think that has a place in political writing.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's important. It'll make things more interesting and keep people perceptive to such ideas and perspectives. So that's good. So one thing I like also is you let your intentions be known, however satirical, ironic, and provocative. You let your intentions do the talking in a free and uninhibited manner, giving way, of course, to entertainment and subtle informatives for the reader. You're politically incorrect, which is...
I'm not politically incorrect in the sense that I want to make a display of myself.
Yeah.
I'm politically incorrect in the sense that if something defies reason, defies logic, I'm going to call it out. I don't think males have babies. I'm sorry. That is not a sensible statement in my point of view. I do not believe, as it's now popular to say, that people have babies. No, women have babies. And that's not being, in my view, it's not being politically correct. It's desperately clinging to truth against this or that passing fad.
Yeah, it's honest and it's bold, and especially in this day and age, with the people who do have other beliefs, such as the ones countering what you just mentioned, it kind of indirectly tells them to, shut the F up in many ways, in an intellectual and logical and reasonable way.
I'm not going to shut anyone up, but you're not going to shut me up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tolerate stupidity. Now, you can say every stupid thing you want. That's your business. But if you think I'm going to abide by it, if you think I'm going to accept it, if you think I'm going to be browbeaten into aping your idiocy, well, you're barking up the wrong tree. It's not going to happen.
Did the Israel-Palestine issue teach you to be very sort of strong and meticulous in such ways, or is this a part of your character naturally in your upbringing? No, I like how also you, like I told you, it's a bit of a slow start at first, just my personal opinion, because I'm not too much into history and background. But yeah, it sheds a lot of great light on the history and context of cancel culture in general. And so yeah, we'll get into that as well. Anyways, all right, let me continue going on maybe to the more pertinent questions here. Oh, it's also interesting, you know, your book, I viewed it as sort of like an inverse guide for how activism works best, and the logic and reasoning and cues behind such progressive advancements, making concrete steps toward change. In that sense, it's a historical book, providing perennial tenets of rationale and pragmatism toward the idealism required for headway change, in a sense. So yeah, all right. Let's see. Another thing. Okay, have you heard the term mansplaining? You know what mansplaining is? So some of it, you know, some of it was tough to read because the semantics. You really delve into the semantics of certain language and certain words and contexts. You know, I got lost and confused amidst. You know, that's on me. Not to say like it's not good writing or anything.
You know, it may be on me.
No,
may, you know, sometimes it may, as I said.
No. But no, it was. Yeah, it's. I don't know how to describe it. There's like a complexity to it, but the simplicity outcome is there as well. You know, so it's kind of like you're holistically and wholesomely targeting a very specific emphatic point being made, and I think in the nuance of it, it contributes to the whole frame of the picture as well. But those little troughs and going down in the roughs of the cave, those are interesting and a little difficult to survive sometimes.
Yeah, it could have been difficult. I recognize that.
No, that's good though. It's good. What is more important for you? The cost of maybe alienating some people intellectually with the big words, sort of indirectly discouraging them from wanting to continue to read the in-depthness of your eloquence, or is it more so, you know, you wanting to get the message across and maybe even dumb it down to a certain extent? Because there's a cost.
Yes, of course.
To both
That's a very
sides.
fair question.
Yeah.
Most people, when they read, they look up 1 out of every 20 or 30 words that they come across that they don't know. You just skip over it, you know? So a reader always has the option of skipping over.
All right, so this book touches on political correctness, wokeness, cancel culture. Would you say those are like the...
Well, I would say, I don't know how far you got into it. It's a large book. The last part of the book is on academic freedom. What I think should and shouldn't go on in the classroom, and how a professor should or should not acquit himself or herself outside the classroom.
And how it relates to you specifically as well.
Yes, and how you know, caused me. I wanted to look back on what happened to me, and to try to be objective. Was I fairly treated or not?
And you said it in a very short length as well. The majority of the book was not about you.
Yeah, I didn't.
Just a very small section at the end, right?
I had two choices, or two options. One was to go into deep detail about my tenure case, and the other was not to. I chose not to. I have sitting in my other room, in my bedroom, I have huge folders I could show you on my tenure case. And when I came to that part of the book, which was the conclusion to part two is in academic freedom, originally I intended I would go through all the details of my case. And I pulled down the folders. And I started looking at it. It was very painful to read. And I thought to myself, number one, physically, can I do this? I was very doubtful.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, does anyone really care about what this non-entity professor at this non-entity institution did to me, or that professor, this or that professor? I said, you know what, I worked hard in this book. I tried to raise the level of discussion of these issues to a higher level. Am I now going to drag the whole thing down by dragging my book through the mud of my tenure case? I decided not to. So what I did, as I suspect you know, is I simply stated what I reproduced in full, the letter by the president of DePaul University, and then I reproduced the, as it were, reply of one of the top scholars in the field who couldn't be accused of being my political partisan because he's a conservative Republican.
Gotcha, yeah.
And then I said, basically, let the reader decide.
Yeah, no, I think that was very good. You made it a bit more universalistic, which isn't always good per se, but I think in this instance it is. In art and music, you probably want to be more detail-oriented, so listeners can be more relatable. But the way you did it, it's almost as if you threw a fishing hook, the bait, and now anybody who is really interested in this, they can come in and delve into your background more. My question is all of the pertinent knowledge to your case publicly available, or is this some of it?
No.
Okay.
There was what's called a non-disclosure agreement
Gotcha.
that you have to sign. There was a settlement in my case, a financial settlement, the exact terms of which I'm not allowed to publicly state. And then there is an agreement that you don't, the expression is, you don't defame or disparage each other in public. So I exercised a certain amount of discretion, and also I didn't want to go through it.
The non-disclosed information that shall forever remain reserved and secret, is it very potent information, or is it just semantics and going through the process? Maybe, I don't know if you're allowed to talk on it.
It's not going to change the verdict on the case. The verdict on the case is dependent on what I do in the last chapter of the book, which is I go through all these cases of professors who were denied tenure, whose tenure was taken away from them, and to try to consider were these valid or invalid cases. So some of them you would know. There was Bertrand Russell, one of the greatest philosophers in the 20th century. He was supposed to teach at City College of New York, and his position was, his appointment was reversed on the grounds that his moral views, his moral views were immoral. So I look through the case very carefully to see whether or not those were valid grounds for denying him his appointment. Then I look at the case of Angela Davis, who first came to public notoriety when she got a position teaching philosophy at UCLA, and then the then governor of UCLA, Ronald Reagan, carried on a vendetta to deny her appointment at UCLA, first because she was a member of the Communist Party, and second because she was active in radical black politics of the time, the Black Panthers and so forth. So I go through these cases, and then I leave it to the reader to decide. I mean, I express my opinion for sure, but I leave it for the reader to decide whether the grounds that were used against these professors to deny them their opportunity to teach, whether those grounds were valid. And therefore I felt that by the end, the reader was in a position to judge whether the grounds to deny me the right to teach were valid.
Beyond the judgment, though, the non-disclosed information and knowledge therein, does it contribute to a person studying and actually understanding
No, I don't
the
think
process
so.
more in depth so that they can then counter the means by which such
No,
things
not
occur?
really,
Because
no.
why would it be non-disclosed to begin with? It's kind of like, what is the value in the non-disclosure that's not being
Listen, let me
released?
tell you something.
Sorry, yeah.
Henry Kissinger said one thing in his life, which was probably true. He said, the battles in academia are so vicious because the stakes are so puny. And if you go through any tenure case, they're always so ugly. They're so stupid, you know. The investment of time and energy in these appointments, most of the professors are complete non-entities. They wrote their doctoral dissertations in the most meaningless, ephemeral, minute subject matter. But they have such high opinions of themselves. You know, everybody loves to exercise power. So you get to exercise power over the tenure candidate.
Yeah, gotcha.
There's nothing very interesting in it.
Sounds good. I see the book, The Inquisition of Bertrand Russell. So you've been looking into Bertrand Russell. I see that. That's some good stuff. All right. Moving on.
Book I just wrote, I did, as most writers do, they send out a lot of copies to other people to read, to get comment, and also I submitted it to many publishers. And the reaction was very hostile.
Gotcha.
But I have to say, it was hostile, it was a generational hostility. Those from my age cohort did not like the book at all. There are a few exceptions, but I think it was a broad generalization. They didn't like it. People from your generation, they're much more laid back. They're willing to argue. They're willing to discuss. I think in a much more calm way. And so the reaction from your generation has been basically positive. For example, now on the web, it's only young people, your generation, who will interview me. I've been on a few times with Brianna Joy Gray, who I like very much. And for example, in the last discussions I had with her were on the issue of abortion, because it's timely, obviously. And it was feisty, but it was calm, respectful. But try talking to a person my generation about the issue, a person on the left. They wanted to throttle me.
Your generation would be more toward the spectrum of religious ideology, whereas this new generation is more so agnostic and toward a new age way of thinking, or is it?
Each generation has what you might call its litmus tests. And in my generation, if you were pro or anti-abortion, it decided whether you were a liberal radical or reactionary conservative.
Gotcha. Wow.
And I was part of that, but now I've had a chance to reflect on it more, read on it more, and I came to an independent